At 12:14 a.m. on September 26, 1983, a Soviet officer sitting in a concrete bunker outside Moscow watched the end of the world appear on a screen. It didn't appear as fire. It didn't appear as explosions. It appeared as a single word flashing in red. Launch. A siren snapped on, high, sharp, merciless. Red lights began to pulse, painting every face in the room the color of blood. Then the screen flashed again. Launch. Then again. And again. Within seconds, the computer was screaming that the United States had fired nuclear missiles at the Soviet Union. Inside that bunker, there was a procedure for this. A phone call, a report up the chain, a decision above them. Retaliate. And once that call is made, it doesn't matter if the computer was wrong. The war is already in motion. The officer's name was Stanislav Petrov, and he had roughly 3 minutes to decide whether to help start a nuclear war, or to look at the most advanced early warning system on Earth and say the words that could get him court-martialed, or executed, if he was wrong. It's a false alarm. 3 minutes, no second chances. No time to wait for more information. Just a blinking screen, screaming alarms, and a room full of men staring at him like he was holding the planet in his hands. Because he was. The Soviet Union had built a satellite warning system called OKO, I. Satellites in orbit scanning for the infrared flash of an American missile launch. On paper, it was perfect. Space doesn't blink. Space doesn't get tired. Space doesn't panic. But Petrov knew something the manuals didn't like to admit. Systems don't have instincts. They have assumptions. And if the assumption is wrong on the worst night possible, the system doesn't hesitate. It kills you. That night, 1983, was the worst kind of year to trust a machine. 3 weeks earlier, Soviet fighters had shot down a Korean Airlines passenger plane. Washington was furious. Moscow was paranoid. Both sides were running drills, moving weapons, expecting a surprise. In the Soviet command culture, surprise was the nightmare. So when the screen lit up with launch, it didn't feel impossible. It felt plausible. And that's what made it lethal. Petrov's console showed a high-confidence warning. The computer wasn't whispering, it was insisting. Young officers in the room stood up too fast. Chairs scraped. A phone rang and kept ringing. Someone's hand hovered over another phone, waiting for Petrov to give the order to report. Petrov stared at the screen and forced himself to do the one thing panic hates. Think. If the United States was launching a first strike, would it be one missile? The computer showed a single launch at first, then a second. Then, within moments, 5. A handful, not hundreds. That detail grabbed Petrov by the throat. A real first strike would be massive, overwhelming, designed to blind Soviet leadership and smash their ability to respond. 5 missiles didn't fit the logic of war. 5 missiles fit the logic of error. Or worse, a trap, a limited strike that could force Moscow into launching everything, instantly, on partial information. Petrov felt sweat under his collar. The siren kept drilling into his skull. The red lights kept pulsing like a heartbeat. Behind him, a voice said quietly, "Comrade Lieutenant Colonel." Not a question. A plea. Tell us what to do. Because if Petrov picked up the phone and reported a confirmed attack, the next link in the chain would not ask him for a debate. They would ask one thing. Do we strike back? And in that culture, the safest answer, career-wise, survival-wise, was always yes. Petrov's fingers hovered above the phone. He imagined 2 futures. In the first, he follows procedure. He reports the launch. Moscow retaliates. If the warning was false, Petrov becomes the man who helped end the world because he obeyed a manual. In the second, he breaks procedure, he delays, he calls the system wrong. If the warning is real, Petrov becomes the man who failed to report an American first strike, the man who let the Soviet Union burn without responding. Either way, if he chooses wrong, history won't remember his thoughts. It will only remember the crater. Petrov made his choice. He lifted the phone and reported a false alarm. Not with certainty, with judgment. False. System malfunction. No confirmation yet. The room went dead quiet for half a second, like the bunker itself stopped breathing. Then the phones started again. Superiors demanded certainty. Petrov had none. All he had was time. Because there was one other layer of warning: ground-based radar. Radar couldn't see missiles at launch from the U.S., yet too far below the horizon. But after a few minutes, if missiles were real, radar would pick them up as they came over the curve of the Earth. Those minutes were the longest Petrov would ever live. The siren screamed. The screen still insisted. The red lights kept pulsing. Petrov stood with both hands braced on the console, eyes locked on the warning display, jaw clenched so tight it ached. Every second without radar confirmation made him more confident, and also more terrified. Because if missiles were real, every second he waited was a second of precious response time dying. In the corner of the room, a young officer swallowed so hard Petrov could hear it. Another man crossed himself quickly and stopped, as if ashamed. The bunker smelled like hot electronics and sweat. Warm metal, stale air, fear. Then the radar window hit. Everyone turned toward the radar reports. 1 minute. 2. Nothing. No tracks. No incoming objects. No confirmation. The siren finally cut off. The red light stopped. The screen went quiet. No missiles. No war. Just a satellite that had mistaken sunlight reflecting off high-altitude clouds for the heat signature of an American launch. The angle of the sun, on the wrong night, had nearly triggered Armageddon, and the only thing that stopped it was a man who looked at a machine screaming, "Launch," and trusted his own logic more than his own career. But the real Cold War horror is what happened next. Petrov didn't get a medal. He got blamed. He was criticized for not following procedure. He was told he filed the report incorrectly. He was treated like a problem, because the system could not admit the truth. They had built a machine that could accidentally start the end of the world. So Petrov walked out at sunrise like nothing happened. He went home. He washed his face. He tried to sleep, and the planet kept turning. Not because the system worked, but because for 3 minutes, one exhausted officer refused to let a computer think for him. In the next part, we're going to go inside those 3 minutes, second by second, and show exactly how close the chain came to locking, how close the call was to being made, and why the man who saved the world almost got destroyed by the system he saved it from. When people talk about that night, they imagine Petrov as calm, some perfect hero sitting in a chair, making the right call with a steady hand. That's not how it felt. It felt like drowning in noise. It felt like standing on a bridge while the bolts pop loose under your feet, and everyone behind you is screaming, "Run!" Petrov was not calm. Petrov was trapped inside a machine that was designed to punish hesitation. Because in nuclear warning, hesitation is treated like betrayal. And the Soviet system in 1983 was built on one idea: obey the chain, do not improvise, do not question. So when Oko screamed, "Launch," Petrov's job was not to think. It was to pass the alarm upward, fast, so the men above him could decide whether to end the world. That's the truth. He wasn't supposed to be the hero. He was supposed to be a relay, a human wire. Here's what the public never feels when they hear the story: the timeline. Because the timeline is the real horror. Not 3 minutes in a movie sense, 3 minutes in a nuclear bunker is a countdown that changes the temperature of the air. Minute 1 is shock. Minute 2 is pressure. Minute 3 is panic disguised as procedure. And once the call goes up the chain, the entire system starts moving on its own. Like a train, you can't stop even if you realize you're on the wrong track. Petrov knew this. That's why the first alarm hit him like a physical blow. 12:14 a.m. The first launch warning flashes. The siren turns on. The red lights begin pulsing. On the console, the system labels the warning, high reliability. Translation, trust the machine. The young officers in the room jump to their stations. One of them reaches for the phone, then stops, because only Petrov can make the report. They stare at him. Petrov stares back at the screen. 1 missile. If this is real, he has to report it. If he reports it and it's false, he could help trigger retaliation. If he doesn't report it and it's real, he could be the man who let Moscow die blind. His mind runs through the doctrine every Soviet officer knows. The United States could try a decapitation strike. Hit command and control first, paralyze response, then finish the job. And that doctrine is exactly why early warning is so dangerous, because it forces a decision when certainty is impossible. Then the screen flashes again. Second launch. Now it's not a glitch, the computer insists. Now it's a pattern. The room changes. Petrov hears breathing turn shallow. He hears someone whisper, "Bozhe," like a prayer. Then the third, then the fourth, then the fifth. The system now claims multiple missiles are on the way, and the pressure on Petrov becomes unbearable because the logic flips. 1 missile could be an error. 5 missiles feels like intent. The phones ring again, harder, louder, as if sound itself can force a decision. Petrov's hand hovers above the phone. This is the moment the procedure wants. Report. Up the chain. Let the generals decide. But Petrov sees the thing the procedure can't see. 5 missiles is not how you begin a real first strike. A real first strike is a hammer. Hundreds. Thousands. Everything. 5 missiles is a knife, a probe, or a mistake. And if it's a mistake, reporting it as real could end everything. Petrov feels sweat pooling under his uniform. He can taste metal in his mouth. He thinks about radar. Ground radar is the second check, but radar won't see anything yet. Not for minutes. Which means Petrov is being asked to make the biggest decision of human history before the only verification system can even look. So he makes a decision that no manual can teach. He decides the machine is wrong. He reports a false alarm. But he does it in the only way the Soviet bureaucracy might tolerate, cautiously. He does not say, "I know." He says, "No confirmation." He buys time. And that time is where the world survives or dies. Because now the system is waiting for the next step. Moscow will demand updates. The bunker will demand certainty. And Petrov will have to hold his ground while the screen continues to scream. This is the part nobody tells you. Calling it a false alarm doesn't end the danger. It begins it. Because once Petrov makes that call, he becomes the weak link. If Moscow believes the alarm is real, Petrov becomes the man who failed his duty. And in 1983, that doesn't end with a bad performance review. It ends with a ruined life. Or worse. So the next minutes are Petrov standing inside a storm, trying to stay upright. The siren keeps wailing. The warning display keeps flashing. The room watches him like he's holding a grenade without a pin. One officer asks, voice tight, "Comrade Lieutenant Colonel, are you sure?" Petrov doesn't answer the question. Because sure is a luxury. He says the only thing that matters. Wait for radar. Wait. That word is poison in an early warning room. Wait means risk. Wait means uncertainty. Wait means you might lose the chance to respond. Petrov watches the clock. He watches the seconds crawl. He imagines, in vivid detail, the call going up to the general staff. A phone on a desk, a red handset, an officer standing at attention, a sentence spoken into the line. Confirmed American launch. He imagines the men above him turning keys, opening envelopes, unlocking plans that have been waiting in drawers for decades. He imagines the first Soviet missiles lifting from their silos while the American missiles, if they were real, are still in the air. And he imagines the horrifying twist. What if the American missiles aren't real, but the Soviet ones are? The first real missiles of the night launched by accident. He forces the thought away and stares at the screen until his eyes burn. The bunker smells like warm circuitry and stale coffee. The red lights make everyone look guilty. Then the radar window arrives. This is it. If missiles exist, radar will see them soon. If missiles don't exist, nothing will appear. This is the moment that decides whether Petrov is a hero or a criminal. The room goes almost silent, like every body has decided breathing is too loud. A minute passes. Nothing. Another minute. Nothing. Petrov's heart is pounding so hard he can feel it in his fingertips. Then another minute. Still nothing. And then, finally, the most powerful sound in the bunker is not the siren. It's the absence of confirmation. No tracks, no objects, no incoming warheads. Petrov doesn't celebrate. He doesn't smile. He doesn't even sit down. He just exhales, slow, like a man who has been holding his breath for a decade. Someone in the room whispers, "Thank God," and no one corrects him. The alarm is shut down. The warning is labeled as malfunction. And the world, outside that bunker, keeps sleeping. Millions of people dreaming. Unaware they were minutes from being vaporized because sunlight hit clouds at the wrong angle. If this was a normal story, it would end here. A man saves the world. He gets rewarded. History applauds. Cold War stories don't end like that. Because the Soviet Union couldn't afford the truth. They couldn't admit their system was fragile. They couldn't admit satellites could hallucinate. They couldn't admit that the protocol could have forced retaliation on an error. So Petrov wasn't praised. He was interrogated. He was criticized for breaking procedure. He was criticized for not writing the report correctly. He was criticized because the institution needed someone to blame that wasn't the system. And Petrov learned the most bitter lesson of all. When you save a machine-run country from disaster, the country doesn't thank you. It punishes you for proving the machine is imperfect. Years later, Petrov would describe that night with a sentence that chills people who understand what it means. He said he wasn't sure he did anything special. He said he was just in the right place at the right time. But that's the terrifying part. Because it means the world didn't survive because the system was safe. The world survived because, by pure luck, the man sitting at that console had enough skepticism to hesitate. If someone else had been on that shift, someone more obedient, more frightened, more desperate to follow orders, the phone call would have gone up the chain. The decision would have been made in Moscow, and history would have ended in a sequence of perfectly correct procedures. That is the real legacy of September 26, 1983. Not that one man saved the world, but that the world was built on a protocol that could destroy it by accident. And we only noticed because, for 3 minutes, one human being refused to treat a computer as God.
Clock on the wall, hands barely move, dust in the air, settling on the truth. Curtains half drawn, half of me too. Chair by the window, still waiting for news. In this silent room and a ringing phone, I heard a heartbeat that wasn't my own. A world that almost burned, but somehow carried on. Thank you to the unknown guardian. Thank you. And you were gone. Ash on the sill, maps on the floor, headlines like ghosts piled by the door, names on a screen fading too fast. I whisper them once, so they might last. Maybe you were hands on a wire, maybe you were eyes on a fire, maybe you were one quiet word, a tremor that shifted the weight of the world. Now the phone is still, but the echo stays soft as a prayer at the end of the day. Thank you to the unknown guardian. Thank you.
Red glow on his wristwatch, secondhand drags like a chain. One bulb in the bunker, buzzing over maps and names. Black phone on the table, cold wire like a snake. One man in the silence, weighing what the world can take. Every heartbeat echoes down the line. Every breath feels like borrowed time. 3 minutes to midnight, and the world holds its breath. One man, one decision, balancing on the edge, with the phone in his hand and a prayer in his chest. 3 minutes to midnight, will we live through this test? breaks down to his roots. 3 minutes to midnight, and the world holds its breath. One man, one decision, balancing on the edge, with the phone in his hand and a prayer in his chest. He could lift it, he could let it ring. He could stop it, he could start the swing of a billion lives in a single hand, in a concrete room on a signal's command. Confirm or stand by, burns into his ear. He closes both eyes, feels the weight of fear. 3 minutes to midnight, then continues its crawl. One word leaves his mouth, barely louder than a call. Somewhere distant sirens, somewhere distant hymns. One choice in the shadows, sows a future on a hill. Cold coat on the glass, numbers race, heartbeat sinks, red glare on my face. Room hums, but something blinks. They say lock it down, voices flat, cut and dry. Everyone is screaming, but something in it feels like a lie. Finger on the trigger key, clock chewing through the time. Static in my head says this doesn't line up right. False alarm, shut it off now. Red lights flash but they don't own us. Screens lie, so I trust my gut somehow. Hear the tone but I won't bow. Stop the countdown, I can see through the fear. Stop the countdown, every signal ain't clear. False alarm, shut it off now. Trust my gut, trust my gut, trust my gut right here. Blueprints on the wall, every line, every trace. Shadows in the hall, but the threat's out of place. They say time is gone, push the code, hit the floor. But my instincts breathing, this isn't what we've done this for. Warning sirens sail the scene, but I read between the lines. Rhythm of my pulse says this danger isn't mine.
blinking cursor in a story someone planned. I cut through the noise